Hi everyone. All right, today I'm going to show you how I fold wafer paper, and you can fold wafer paper. It's just difficult if the air is really dry and the paper is brittle. And the first thing I'm going to do is make a template. Today I'm making these little paper airplanes because I had a customer ask if you could make paper airplanes with wafer paper. You can, but there's a couple ways to do it. It's just a little tricky. So first, what you want to do is test your wafer paper. Make sure that when you bend it, you kind of see if it's going to crack. This cracked just a little bit along the edge because the air is dry. And it's difficult to get wafer paper to bend and fold exactly right without cracking like that. So just kind of get an idea of what it feels like, and then take your template. I made a little airplane so that I could see where the folds are, and you can do the same thing. If it's a really complicated origami shape or something like that, it might be too tricky to do that. But if it's a simple shape like this, you can do it this way. Just outline it, and we're not going to cut with the pen. I'm using a pen so I can see exactly where the line is, but I'm not going to leave the pen on the paper that's used. I'm going to cut inside that line. But you want to trace around the template, and then you're going to just take some regular scissors and you're going to cut inside the line so that you're not including that pen that you just wrote on, because you don't want to put that on someone's cake, whatever. If it's not, if the pen is not edible, then you don't want to use it. You can use an edible food coloring pen if you want to, but I use a Sharpie. All right, now when you come into inner folds like this, see, I went a little bit too far with the tip of the scissors. That can cause you some trouble down the road, so be really careful that you're not doing that if you can help it. And I'll show you what happened in a little bit down the road in this process. Now, when you're doing this, you want to just kind of make sure that it's close to the template so you don't have a lot of extra room. This was fine. And there's two ways to do this. The first way I'm doing it, I'm just going to I'm not pressing it really hard. I'm just kind of bending it to get an idea where that middle fold would be. And that's going to make kind of a line. And then I'm going to take some wafer paper conditioner. This is glycerin and water, and it's my wafer paper conditioner, but I've watered it way down because this stuff goes a long way. I'm just going to put a very thin stripe of this right where the fold is. And I did not fold this to crack the paper, like fold it. I just bent it so I could see where that's going to be. That's all you need to soften the paper up, that you can then fold it. And I think I still ripped it a little bit. So you might want to wait a little bit, let the conditioner soak into the paper, but that'll give you the ability to fold it and make that crease. And then we're going to do the next folds, and you see right on the tip there, that's where I went a little bit. Oh no, that's not where I went a little bit too far. I think that's where the paper cracked. So you have to be careful, because if you don't crack, if you crack the paper, see the tip there, then it's not going to fold evenly, and you're just going to have to manipulate it a little bit. It's not a huge deal, but it's better if you can avoid doing that, because then you don't have to work around it. Okay, so you're just going to put the conditioner on the paper, let it soak in. I'm working a little fast. I would do one stripe, like one paintbrush swipe, and this is kind of a dry brush. This is not a wet paintbrush. It just has a little bit of the conditioner on it. And see how that's torn because I folded it before it softened up. So just put one paintbrush swipe on there, let it soak in for a minute, and then fold it, because it's just going to crack if you don't. And you might want to get like a little paper towel or something and blot your paintbrush on that before you do this. But just follow the line, do like a little basic crease and follow the line. But you see right at the back there, see where there's a lot of the conditioner, and at the very end, I think that's the spot where there was a little bit of shrinkage on the wafer paper itself. Because when it gets too wet, you don't want to get too much liquid on it, because it will melt and shrink. So it's a delicate balance. You might have to work with this a little bit, but try to keep your brush relatively dry, and that will work out best. Now I'm going to paint a line between there and here, because that's where the next fold is. And for this one, it's 2 layers of the paper at this point, like when you get up to the front of it. So I am going to paint a little bit more, and then I'm very carefully going to bend it. And at this point, I'm just kind of like manipulating it into shape, and then it's going to dry. It's going to stay where it is. So you do this on either side, and you still have that little paper template to show you where all the folds should be, so you can figure it out if you have trouble. but it's pretty direct in this case because there's a little point at the back, and you just go between here and the nose of the plane and just paint right down there. Try to keep it straight, and you're just moistening the paper enough so that it's going to soften up and you can manipulate it. So you're not folding it. At some places you are, like where I have my thumb and my forefinger right there, I am really folding it. I'm pressing it pretty hard. But at that point it's softened up and it's not going to tear. Now once you get it into shape, and this is the same thing, you can do this to make origami cranes to put on cakes and that kind of thing, but you just have to do the paper template first and figure out how you're going to have to fold this. Sometimes you don't have to do actual origami, and you just kind of manipulate it into shape. So right now I'm just kind of moistening that center piece, and I'm pressing those together so that they hold their shape and they stick together, so it's not going to fall apart. If you don't want it to be one piece like that and you do want it to open up, just don't do that last part. For the second part, and this is a different method, I have another piece cut out. I'm going to use a hot steam machine that's a little portable steamer, and I will put the link for this in the description of the video. It doesn't cost that much and it's really handy. You just turn it on, fill it with water. Distilled water is best, but it's hot steam and you have to be careful with it still, but it will soften the wafer paper so that you can fold it and manipulate it. And if you have leaves that you want to curl or petals that you want to make, it works really well. And I'm just waving this when the steam starts coming out. It heats up, the steam starts coming out. I'm waving that in front, and see how it's made the paper curl up, because it's just infusing moisture into that paper, and then I can just fold it. You still have to be careful, because if it seems like it's wet enough but then it's not, it will crack. But for the most part, all you need to do with steam is just give it a little tiny bit, and that will make the paper damp enough in that moment to manipulate it. So I am going to come back see how it's making the paper just kind of move, because it's absorbing that moisture. And all you have to do is just wave it a couple times, just bang, bang, you're done. And then it stays damp enough for a while that you can manipulate it and fold it into place. And I am not pressing really super hard here. I am being careful, but the paper is damp at this point. And I just come back and see how it's really, I mean, that's a lot of steam. And this is a very quick way to do it, but you do have to test it out, see how much steam you need, and kind of play with it a little bit to get used to controlling the amount that you're putting on the paper. But a little steamer like this is a really, really good way to manipulate wafer paper and to get it to do what you want it to. You also have to be careful, though, that you don't get it too wet, because it will melt. And as I was doing this, you can feel when wafer paper is wet, and see it's kind of sticking to itself right there, so you have to be careful. But it does let you really pinch it. I'm really pinching it here and pressing that down, and it's not tearing. And it is kind of sticking to itself because it's wet. So you have to be careful that you're not getting it to stick to itself in places you don't want it to stick to. But again, it's just practice, and a little portable steamer is a really good instrument to have if you do a lot of wafer paper work, because it just makes it so much easier. And this is so much faster than doing the painting with the conditioner and all that kind of stuff. The conditioner is a little more precise, and you can make it bend exactly where you want it to. So part of it really is just deciding which method is going to work best for what you're doing. Let's see how that worked. And it's a little bit wiggly. See, this is the thing. It's not as precise, because when you put steam on wafer paper, it makes it expand. And the conditioner won't do that. But see, you do run the risk that little edge is still a little cracked. So you run the risk of having it be a little cracked. On this one, you run the risk of having it be a little warped. So it's finding a balance. You might want to do a combination of the two methods, but you can fold wafer paper. It's just a matter of giving it enough moisture so that it doesn't crack when you fold it.